I remember just thinking, this is real. You know, like sometimes you have something that like a moment's like building up and you can feel that build up to it. The clock is not gonna stop ticking. It's gonna happen. And you get there and that moment arrives and like, okay, it's here. Like, and this is real now.
Welcome back to Mulligan Brothers. Today's video, as always, was sponsored by HUEL. I'm drinking HUEL Black Edition, which has 26 vitamins and minerals, 35 grams of protein and slow release carbs to make sure that I can stay satiated and proteined up whilst I make these documentaries. If you want to find out more about these, go to the link in the description. I'll talk about them a little bit later on in the video. Do you remember your first time that you were deployed and you were like, oh, this is really real? Like where the, you know, all the training had been done, but the reality of war kind of struck?
Yeah, you know, I had done like counter drug operations and stuff like that before, and I had thought that thought already landed on me, but it wasn't like going into Afghanistan. I had a very unique experience going to Afghanistan the first time. When I got there, I didn't fly like with my unit to go. I didn't fly with my unit because of my job as I ended up being an AFO Advanced Force Operator for a JSOC task force. I flew independently, so I flew by myself. There was some SEALs from that was on the aircraft with me, but most of his equipment got on in Norfolk, got on a C-130, found a spot to climb up, put some gear, slept in these few SEAL soldiers were going there independently as well to meet up with their unit, and I flew there to meet my command. And so we land at Bagram Air Force Base in the middle of the night. I remember landing and thinking, walking out, and it felt like Twin End Palms. It felt like the air, like, you know, maybe the I don't want to say traumatic, but the intensity, my senses like were able to just like take in. I remember just the instant walking out the aircraft and feeling like my senses must have been really turned on, because I felt like this feels like Twin End Palms. I noticed that. So my senses must have been like, I don't know if you ever had those kind of sensory overloads before. And I was waiting to meet the person I was going to meet. So they told me to wait here. And so I was kind of on the tarmac of the airfield, and I walked out to the edge of the perimeter of the base. And at this time, 2003, it was pretty primitive. Bagram Air Force Base was pretty primitive. They have these HESCO barriers, which are the Earthfield barriers. And on top of them were some Constantino wire. And I walked up to the edge of that bay, that perimeter. And I remember just thinking, what you just asked, the reality of actually being there. And like, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is like real. I'd already been in like 9, almost 10 years around the military. So I wasn't like a kid. I was very experienced and I was very trained to do the job I was being sent there to do. But like the reality of being there is like, this is real. Like, and on the other side of these HESCO barriers out there in the dark somewhere is the Taliban, the enemy. And over the next few months, like, I'm going to try to kill them and they're going to try to kill me. That's what's really about to happen. And the reality of that made me like, ask myself, like, am I ready to do what I'm being sent here to do? Am I ready to do this? And it was like a real, like, profound moment. Like, you know, like sometimes you have something that like a moment's like building up and you can feel that build up to it. The clock is not gonna stop ticking. It's gonna happen. And you get there and that moment arrives and like, okay, it's here. Like, and this is real now. And I remember having that moment, like, this is real. And, you know, this isn't training. There's no more getting ready. Like what I have in the Randy Couture is a guy I used to train with in MMA. He's a 5-time UFC champion, and he always used to say after training camp was over, the training was done, and now it's time to fight. He'd say the hay isn't born. Like it's already like there's nothing else we're gonna do. Like everything's done. Like now you just have to do what you went there to do.
Today's episode, as always, was powered by HUEL. This stuff has been absolutely crucial to my training and the world record I just broke, the world's heaviest marathon, where I carried 220 pounds for 28 miles. Yes, I achieved it, guys. It is done. This is what I was drinking, HUEL Black Edition. It has 35 grams of protein, 26 vitamins and minerals and slow release carbs. And it's what I use in my training all the time. But don't just take my word for it. People like the hardest geezer ran across Africa drinking this stuff. It's absolutely amazing. And if you want to get exclusive offers and deals, go to the link in the description and you can find out more about their other products like their daily greens and their meals, which I eat every single lunchtime. Thank you to HUEL for sponsoring the video, and let's dive back in to the episode. Do you remember the first experience that confirmed that you were right in that thinking that this is real?
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty, Kabul, even Kabul, where it's where I first lived, when I went to Afghanistan, I'd never lived on a base. I mean, I did 8 deployments and I probably spent 2 weeks on a base. Like right away, like seeing the ISAF, nothing that we were involved in, but just because you like the first moment, like seeing ISAF, International Security Assistance Force, which is all the international community participated in this kind of security force in Afghanistan, and the Taliban getting a fight right in front of us in Kabul. And I'm like, this is like kinetic war, like happening right in front of me. And I'm just a bystander in it. But like, I'm in a war zone. Like this is for real. And they were, shooting RPGs and rockets, and the guy on top of a ISAF mechanized vehicle firing a 25 millimeter cannon off right in front of civilians and stuff like that. I'm like, I'd never seen anything like that before. I'm like, this is for real.
With your experience, what do you think the reality was for people who, or for those younger guys who this is their, first deployment ever, first experience?
Oh man, I've thought about that a lot. Like, and I've always, honestly, like, it's always made me, because I went in during a peacetime, and I'm thankful for that, because it gave me the opportunity to have a lot of training experience built up before I got to go. But a lot of, when 9/11 happened in America, and those Twin Towers fell, I was a sergeant at 3rd Force Recon in the reserves, but I was a team leader there. And when I watched those planes hit those World Trade Center buildings, I'm like, I was sitting out on the couch watching those planes hit, and I'm thinking, my life's never going to be the same. Like, I knew at that moment, like, because of my job, like, the world just changed. Like, my life is never going to be the same. Like, the first plane hit, and I'm like, what just happened? Like, somebody accidentally drove a plane in a building. The second plane hit, and I'm like, this is an attack, and we're going to make this right. Like, and when I showed up in my unit, but like, there was a wave across like every street. America's super divided right now, and it was back then. But like every street you drove down the street in America, and all you see was American flags. Like, America was united. It was very patriotic, and everyone was like, the recruiting officers were flooded, and these young men and women, their response to it as patriots that love our country was like, we want to go make this right. We want to go, and so all these young men and women joined at 9/11, and then when I got there in 2003, there were still kids going into Afghanistan to rectify what they believe, to be an attack on our country. And some of them were just kids, and their youth, they gave up their youth to go there, their innocence to go there. And I just could not imagine being a 18-year-old kid still trying to understand life and seeing the type of things they've seen in Afghanistan, seeing their buddies shot, burned to death, trapped in vehicles, blown up in front of them, carrying their buddies off, dead bodies off battlefields, watching their friends bleed out and die while they're trying to treat them and die in their hands. Like, I just can't imagine, being an 18, 19-year-old kid and enduring that. And, so I never had to experience that at that age. And so, my heart breaks for them, but also have extreme gratitude to, those young men and women that raised their hand and said, I want to go serve during that time. Because it's easy to go serve in a peacetime when you're going to get college and a job and pay. But if you were raising your hand after 9/11, you knew exactly what you were signing up for. You were going overseas. Not everybody did, but the belief was, I'm not volunteering to serve. I'm volunteering to go into war. And that's a heavy decision for a kid to make, and so many of them did. And they went there and seen that and endured that. That's part of my commitment to what I do today at Mighty Oaks, and making sure that those who made that commitment get cared for in the back end, even if our government's not going to do it right. Having purpose is fundamentally so important to who I am. The two most important days in a person's life are the day that they're born and the day they find out why.